Discover the world of Yerba mate like never before. Learn how to prepare it perfectly. Explore its potential brain health benefits and see why it's rising in popularity across the US. Plus, get your detailed review of this week's featured Yerba in the Yerba of the Week review, Rei Verde. Welcome back, mis amigos, mis amigas, my mate addicts and Yerba hooligans. I am Thomas, and at the same time the host of this show that I love to call Mateina, your podcast that is all about Yerba mate, the culture, the drink, and everything that belongs to it. And today we are having a live show from Miami. Yes, we're in Miami. I cannot say the word, otherwise it would be an explicit episode, and we don't want that. Everyone, regardless of age, should be able to enjoy this show. But we are in Miami, sending the podcast out from South Beach. No, we're not in South Beach, but we're in Miami. I already gave you a little insight on what to expect from today's show. We're discovering the world of Yerba mate like never before. How to prepare it perfectly. Back by popular demand, I must say. People ask to explain it again. We have a lot of new members, new followers on this show. And we also have a lot of new materos and new materas that maybe don't know much about Yerba yet, but are interested in it, and that's beautiful. So we're going back and explain it to you from scratch. It's very simple. It's very easy. A mate can be prepared within seconds. Yeah, faster than your coffee maker can make you coffee. You just have to get a hold of it. It's very simple. It's very easy. It's very straightforward. That is our first topic. Then we look at potential brain health benefits. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I'm relaying a message here. Because scientists are looking into the benefits of Yerba mate. They've been doing this for a long time, and today we're looking at health benefits to the brain. And then we're looking at the rising popularity across the US. Why is that? Well, good question. And then we have the Rei Verde Yerba of the Week review. So stay tuned. A lot of exciting topics. I am excited to be here. I hope you're excited too. And without any further ado, let's get this show on the roads. Preparing Yerba mate the right way. But before we are doing this, I've already had a pre-prepared Yerba. So I don't have to do it on the show, and I can just take a sip of the Yerba of the Week, Rei Verde, tradicional. So if you've ever seen someone prepare Yerba mate for the first time, you might have wondered whether you're watching someone make a drink or do a performance of some sort. And there is particular rhythm that this person may have had. There's this careful pouring. There's a precise angle of a slope that is called a montanita. There is this stainless steel or silver, paca silver or silver straw that is placed in that foreign object, if you will. Because you don't really know what it is if you have never seen it, right? You don't know what they do. It's a pumpkin normally. It's a calabash. It can look mysterious at first, but once you understand what exactly it is and how it works and what it does, the process becomes simple. It's very satisfying, and honestly, it's a little addictive too. Because preparing mate properly isn't just about tradition. It's about unlocking the best possible flavor, aroma, and longevity from your leaves. And in order to know which leaves you should use, in order to know which Yerba you should use, we're going to start from the beginning. There's so many different kinds of Yerbas. There's so many different kinds of gourds. And I think before we look into how to prepare it, let's look at the equipment that you need to prepare a good Yerba. And that's number one, the gourd. Gourds, they are made from different materials. They're made in different shapes and forms. They are fancier, they are not so fancy. In our previous episode, we talked about a gourd that was more than 4K, so $4,000. But you can also get gourds for like $10. Same in euros or in any other currency. So that's the first thing you need, a gourd. You can get a glass gourd, you can get a calabash, which is the pumpkin. You can get stainless steel. You can get a huff if you want. It doesn't really matter what you get. You need a gourd. You need a container where you pour the yerba in. Yerba, what is it? It comes from the plant Ilex paraguayensis, which grows predominantly in the northeast of Argentina, in Paraguay, and in Brazil. And that is what you need next, the yerba. There's different kinds of yerbas. Paraguayan yerba are predominantly used for tereré. There's a cold version that's called tereré. There's a warm version that's the yerba mate. And then there is the Argentinian one, which is called chimarrão. They are different in each region in terms of like how it's produced, how it looks, how it smells, how it tastes. So once you have the yerba, you need something that you can drink it with. And that's called a bombilla or a bombilla if you don't pronounce it the Argentinian or Uruguayan way or the porteño way. And that's the tool that you stick into the calabash or the gourd right underneath the yerba, and then you start sipping your holy drink. I'm saying holy because legend has it that yerba was brought to the Guarani people by the gods. Okay, so now that we have all the essentials, we have the gourd, yerba, the bombilla, which is that filtered straw that I was just talking about. Gourds come also in many materials, as we've discussed. I guess we can start. First, we need to talk about a quantity of yerba that we're pouring in, because for newcomers, that might be surprising in the beginning. Yerba mate is not prepared like tea. You don't just sprinkle a teaspoon and call it a day. No, instead, you fill your gourd about halfway to 3/4 full with yerba. And that might sound a lot, but it's intentional because mate is designed for repeated infusions. It's not boiling. It's not one-time infusion. So meaning you'll refill the same leaves with hot water again and again and again during just one session. So the generous amount of yerba allows the flavor to remain rich across many pours rather than fading quickly. And before you enter the water, there's an important step that seasoned drinkers perform almost automatically. And you may have seen that. And that's, for me, one of the most beautiful things, building the montanita, that little slope. So once you've filled the gourd with yerba, place your hand over the opening, turn it upside down, and shake it gently. You can also turn it sideways and shake it gently. Just make sure no leaves fall out. Then tilt it back upright at an angle so that the yerba settles into this little montanita or slope on just one side. And this little maneuver serves two purposes. First, it brings the finest particles on top, and that prevents the bombilla from clogging later. And secondly, it creates a hollow space for the bottom of the slope where the water will go. So think of it as arranging a stage before a performance begins. The temperature is the most crucial element of good mate because you don't want to burn it. And it's always where many beginners go wrong. And I was one of them. The water should never be boiling. Perfect temperature, around 75 degrees Celsius or 160 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Because you don't want to burn the leaves. That produces an ugly bitterness, and it shortens the lifespan of the yerba. So properly heated water is what you absolutely need. And if you want to have an expert tip, if you are boiling water on your stove or in a water heater that has no temperature regulation, just leave the top open, fill the water in, start boiling it. And once you see those little bubbles on the bottom They have to be on the bottom. On top, it's too late. Then it's already too hot. But on the bottom, once you see the first little bubbles, turn it off. That's the perfect temperature for yerba mate. If you want to have more of those tips, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, somosmateina.com. If you follow us on Instagram, you also get a 10% off coupon for our shop, somosmateina.com. Yeah, so now that we have the yerba in its place, we have the gourd, we know the right temperature, we have to build the montanita. So take the bombilla and squeeze that little montanita a little bit harder. Then you take a little bit of water, of cold water, just a few dashes of cold water in it, because you don't want to shock the leaves. That is what the leaves want first. And then pour a little bit of warm water, the one that is already in your thermos, on top, and let it sit for a minute or two. Make sure the leaves have time to absorb the water. And then what you do next is you put the bombilla in the gourd. So make sure the gourd is still tilted, so the montanita is still intact. Only half of the gourd should be filled with yerba. Then you take the bombilla and you slide it down the side where there is no leaves and push it underneath the yerba. You can wiggle it a little bit, just make sure you go in there. And when you do that, put your thumb on top of the bombilla so there is no water going into the bombilla that might clog it. And then you put it down, pour water down the bombilla on the side where the bombilla is in, and start sipping. The first sip might be bitter, that's normal, but with every sip, new flavors will come out. You will get the full exposure, the full experience of each yerba. And don't be shy. If you don't like the first one, don't be afraid. It happens. If you don't like it, if you don't like the first yerba, that's okay. Remember the first time you sipped on beer? You probably didn't like it either. Now you might like it a little bit more. But don't you worry. If the first sip is too bitter, if the second sip is too bitter, if the third, fourth, fifth doesn't taste the way you want it to taste, try a different yerba. Maybe you start with a flavored one. CBZ has a lot of flavored ones. Cachamay have a lot of flavored options. Almost every brand has now a flavored option. So try those first. They are lighter, they are more approachable, and then go to the stronger ones. And the ones that are more intense, they're richer in your typical yerba flavor that is more smoked. Or then you go to the Uruguayan ones that are really intense, they're finer in consistency and also a little bit stronger. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So to summarize it, you need a gourd, you need yerba, you need the bombilla, you need a thermos for hot water. You fill the yerba 2/3 in the gourd. You tilt it, shake it, get the dusty residue on top. You see it when you lift your hand. Then you build the montanita by using your bombilla, pushing it, squeezing it, pour a little bit of cold water, pour a little of hot water. Let it sit for 1 to 2 minutes. Take the bombilla, put your thumb on it, slide it underneath the montanita that you built. Put it down and pour the water right down where the bombilla goes into the gourd, and then you should enjoy your yerba mate. Congratulations, you're an expert now. It's very easy, right? And trust me, this sounds a lot. This sounds like there's a lot of things that you can do and have to do, but in reality, you do all of this in a few seconds. Once you got a hold of it, super easy. You do it in seconds. And trust me, I can do it faster than my coffee maker can make coffee. And I promise you, you can do it at least as fast as I can do it. At least. So if you have any questions on how to prepare the perfect yerba mate on water temperature, on how to clean your gourd, follow us on Somos Mateina on Instagram. you can always send me a message. You can also go on somosmateina.com. There's a chat window. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. I'll answer as soon as I can. And I hope you will enjoy your first yerba mate and continue drinking it, because it's a beautiful drink. It's a beautiful ritual. It slows down the morning pace and prepares you for the day. And what does this simple daily habit has to do with a complex neurological disease, and how the two might be connected? This question have some scientists asked themselves. And the question is whether drinking yerba mate could play a role in reducing the risk of Parkinson's disease. And again, my friends, I'm not a doctor and neither am I a scientist. I'm just someone who is very interested in yerba mate and its health benefits. And I stumbled across this article recently, which I wanted to relate to you. Very unbiased. So think of it whatever you want, make of it whatever you want. But scientists are investigating on how yerba mate plays a role in reducing the risk of Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's, if you don't know what it is one of the most common neurodegenerative disorders in the world. It affects movement, coordination, the range of non-motor functions such as sleep and mood. The condition is linked to a gradual loss of dopaminergic neurons in the brain, which are responsible for producing dopamine. That's a chemical essential for controlling movement. And as these neurons deteriorate, the characteristic symptoms of Parkinson's begin to appear. And researchers have been increasingly focused on prevention, especially through lifestyle and dietary factors. This is where yerba mate enters the discussion. Yerba mate is, as we already know, a traditional South American beverage made from the leaves of the Ilex paraguayensis plant and has long been valued for its stimulating and social qualities. But more recently, it has attracted scientific attention for the potential health benefits. And if you have not listened to our previous episode, we're talking about something that is also health related. So go back, listen to our previous episode too. You will be fascinated what benefits yerba mate really brings along. And studies by Argentine researchers suggested that long-term consumption of yerba mate may help delay the onset or even reduce the risk of developing Parkinson's disease. The proposed explanation lies in its biochemical composition, because yerba mate contains a high concentration of antioxidants which help combat oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is an imbalance where free radicals outnumber antioxidants, and is one of the key mechanisms involved in neurodegeneration, contributing to the damage and eventual death of neurons. And by reducing the stress, the compounds in mate may help protect dopaminergic neurons from degenerating. And among these compounds, we've talked a lot about it, are polyphenols and substances such as chlorogenic acids, which are being studied for their neuroprotective properties. It is important to clarify what this means in practical terms. Drinking mate is not a cure for Parkinson's disease, and it does not guarantee prevention. The research only suggests a potential association between long-term consumption and a lower risk or delayed onset, rather than a direct cause and effect solution. And that I have to emphasize. But yerba mate also fits into a broader pattern observed in nutritional research. Diet rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds are often associated with better long-term neurological health, and those compounds can be found in yerba. So in that sense, the value of this research lies as much in its direction as in its conclusion. It encourages further investigation into how common foods and beverages might contribute to long-term brain health and how prevention strategies can be integrated into everyday life. And I, as an advocate for Yerba Mate, I love that there is a lot of scientists, not only in Argentina, but also a lot in the United States that are looking into health benefits. And in one of the previous episodes, we also looked into mate that is washed out, the lavado mate, how it can be turned into something very valuable instead of just ending up in a garbage bin. If you want to listen to that, go back 2 episodes. You will be surprised what they found out. And something is changing now. And it's not the drink itself, but where and how it is being consumed. Because according to recent reports highlighted by Argentine sources, Yerba Mate has entered the top 3 recommended beverages in the United States within certain health and wellness rankings. Congratulations! Beautiful. And this is a significant shift, considering that the US beverage market has historically been dominated by coffee, soft drinks, and more recently energy drinks. And to understand that rise, it helps to look at a broader consumption trends. Because in recent years, and that does not just apply to the United States, but also to Europe, consumers have increasingly moved towards products that are perceived as natural, functional, and beneficial for long-term health. And Yerba Mate just fits right in there. Because it contains caffeine, but is often marked as providing a more balanced and sustained energy effect compared to coffee. There's no spikes. And it is also rich in antioxidants and other bioactive compounds which contribute to its positioning as a health-oriented beverage. And this shift is part of a larger global pattern. When you look at it, Yerba Mate is already considered a 3rd most popular naturally caffeinated drink worldwide behind tea and coffee, and its international presence has been expanded steadily. But in the US, however, the way people consume mate often differs from traditional practices. Instead of being prepared, as we discussed earlier, in a gourd and is shared in a ronda, where you share the drink with friends, it is commonly sold in ready-to-drink cans, tea bags, or bottled beverages. And that contributes to the growth of mate in the US and is also closely linked to branding and lifestyle. And at the same time, its cultural origins remain an important part of its appeal. The idea that this drink comes from a long-standing tradition adds to a sense of authenticity that resonates with consumers looking for alternatives to highly processed products. And what makes this moment particularly notable is the contrast between origin and adoption. Because Yerba Mate began as a regional practice rooted in indigenous and local customs and is now being reinterpreted in a completely different cultural and commercial environment. I think the larger takeaway is that food and drink trends are increasingly global, but they do not spread unchanged. They adapt, evolve, and take on new meanings depending on where they land. Yerba Mate's rise in the United States is a clear example of this process. A traditional drink shaped by centuries of cultural practice is now being redefined through modern consumer preferences and global markets. And as much as I am a defender of the way mate should be consumed in a gourd with a bombilla, with the classic yerba in it, with your thermos, walking around, drinking it, sipping it, sharing it with people, I also am happy that mate found new ways on how to spread. And who knows, maybe that is also a way of opening doors for the traditional way of drinking yerba mate. Yes, yerba mate, beautiful drink. Rei Verde is a yerba that's even more beautiful, because that is the yerba of the week that we're going to talk about. It is the Brazilian brand Rei Verde, a name that evokes lush green fields and a tradition deeply rooted in South American yerba culture. But first things first, to understand Rei Verde, we have to go back to where it all began. The company behind the brand Yerba Rei Verde was founded on May 23rd, 1985 by Rei Verde, a man with almost 4 decades of experience in the mate industry before starting his own operation. His goal? Simple. Craft high-quality yerba mate that spoke to both tradition and the evolving tastes of mate drinkers across the continent. Starting in the southern regions of Brazil, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, Rei Verde grew from a small local operation into a respected producer with multiple facilities and a reputation for consistency. Over the years, it expanded operations, opening additional units in Erechim, Ilópolis, and Arvoresinha, and even in Paraná in São Mateus do Sul, solidifying its footprint in one of the most fertile yerba mate regions in the world. And those regions that I mentioned, they're all in the southern part of Brazil. From its roots, servicing local chimarrão drinkers, and you've heard that name before, that's pretty much the version of yerba mate that people in Brazil drink. It looks a little bit more different. You have different gourds, but the overall concept is the same. Yeah, so from the roots, servicing local chimarrão drinkers, that intense and fresh green mate style Brazil is famous for Rei Verde. And let's talk about the taste a little bit, because Rei Verde Tradicional, for example, you're stuck by a fragrance that is at once earthy and intriguing. There's a sharpness to the aroma, a blend of fresh herbs and subtle sweetness that invites you in. So that's the flavor that you smell first. The scent. It doesn't hit you with bold smoke or bitterness right away. Instead, it teases you with cedarwood, vegetal notes, and a hint of fruity jam-like sweetness that makes you very curious about the sip to come. On the palate, this yerba starts kind of softly, almost gently. The first few tastes can feel mild, even reserved, with a nutty undertone that some compare to a salty peanut. But don't let that initial calm fool you. As you continue to drink, those early whispers gave way to a more layered experience. A slightly earthy, woody backbone supports a natural sweetness and floral nuances that unfold with each refill. It's smooth, sometimes almost comforting, with a long, lingering finish that leaves those floral and peanut-like notes hanging in the air after you've taken a pause from sipping. And Rei Verde yerbas don't shock your palate with overwhelming bitterness. Rather, they are storytellers, ones that reveal themselves slowly. And there is a Rei Verde for each and every one of you. There is the Rei Verde Composto. It blends herbs, chamomile, anise, and fennel. Rei Verde Classica. It's a smooth chimarrão-style yerba with a creamier profile. And then you have your flavored terreres, like the Rei Verde yerba mate. Terrere Piña for cold brews. So who is it good for? Who would enjoy a Rei Verde? I would say drinkers who appreciate complexity rather than the immediate intensity will find a lot to love, especially with the two most popular ones, the premium and the tradicional. Because the calm and earthy sweetness of the tradicional makes it accessible to those newer to yerba mate, while the premium's depth keeps veteran drinkers coming back for another gourd. So I guess here is the full picture. Rei Verde is a brand with decades of history and a footprint in both traditional Brazilian chimarrão and internationally influenced aged yerba styles. Its flavor profiles shift gracefully from gentle and sweet earthy tones to rich, complex layers of malt, wood, and fruits, serving both newcomers and seasoned mate drinkers. And my dear listeners, Rei Verde offers a narrative in every gourd, one that rewards attentive brewing and patient sipping, inviting you into a ritual of mate with a taste that is both classic and unforgettable. And with this Yerba of the Week review, we have come to the end of today's episode. And I don't know if you noticed, but my voice is fading, so I need a little sip of the good old drink, Yerba mate. We've learned a lot today. We know how to make a yerba. We know which utensils, which tools, which equipment we need, how to prepare it. We also learned how yerba mate could affect Parkinson's disease in a positive way. We also talked about a beautiful yerba and how the market has changed a little bit and also opened doors for the traditional way of drinking yerba. Mis materos, mis materas, thanks again for listening in. It has been a pleasure as always. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget, subscribe, like the show, go on somosmateina.com, get your Rei Verde. We have it in stock. Try it. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's a good time to taste Rei Verde. And follow us on Instagram, somosmateina.com. If you follow us, you get a 10% off coupon. Very simple. All you have to do is follow us. And with that, my yerba aficionados and mate hooligans, or mate aficionados and yerba hooligans, thank you. It has been a pleasure. My name is Tomas, or you can call me Thomas. And don't forget, el café es para mortales, el mate para leyendas.